and welcome to Sunday Politics live on Channels Television. I'm Kaido Kikulu here in Lagos. Well, let's tell you that President Bwala Tinubu today departed the nation's capital Abuja for New York, where he'll be attending the 78th United Nations General Assembly, UNGA, which is his first as president and his second major international engagement. Well, the gathering will be focusing on accelerating action on the 2030 agenda and its sustainable development goals towards peace, prosperity, progress, and sustainability for all. So let's take a look at the president's itinerary. Here's what it looks like. On Tuesday, September the 19th, the president will give his inaugural national statement on the floor of the United Nations headquarters, and then he will hold bilateral meetings with world leaders, including EU Commission, Brazil, South Africa, and the rest. But that's not all. The president is also billed to meet with transnational firms like Microsoft, Meta Technologies, ExxonMobil, General Electric, and the rest. The president will also be addressing Nigerian SMEs Business Summit, and he'll conduct the NASDAQ closing ceremony, which is said to be novel for an African leader. Now, on the trip with the president are 6 state governors and, of course, members of his cabinet. Meanwhile, Vice President Kashim Shettima has been attending another multilateral event, the G77 plus China Leaders Summit, which is holding in Cuba. Now, just before the news of the president's departure, he added 2 more names to his cabinet. They are Dr. Jamila Ibrahim as a Minister of Youth and Mr. Ayodele Olawande as Minister of State. Now, according to a statement by presidential spokesperson, the appointments are subject to confirmation by the Senate. So let's take a look at some snapshots of these nominees. There you see Dr. Jamila Ibrahim, the Minister of Youth nominee. She's from Kwara State. She's 36 years old, a medical doctor by qualification, and she had previously served as Senior Special Assistant to Kwara State Governor. So that's for the Minister of Youth. That's a snapshot of her. Well, let's take a look at the Minister of State for Youth nominee, Mr. Ayodele Olawande. Well, there you see, he's from Ondo State. That's his state of origin. Is 34 years old, and talking about his experiences, previously served in the office of the Special Advisor to the President on Innovation from 2019 to 2023. So you can call it a week of appointments, it will seem, because this past week alone, the FIRS, the Central Bank of Nigeria, the NSPIA, and now the Ministry of Youth have gotten new potential heads. So all eyes will now shift on the Senate to screen them when it resumes from recess on the 26th of this month, just over 1 week to go. That's barring any change, of course. All right, let's move ahead, shall we? It's a major package for you tonight. But just before we get into our first conversation tonight, let's bring you this update just in moments ago. Let's tell you that the time is still ticking for the federal government as Labour's ultimatum to go on an indefinite strike, which they say will shut down the nation, expires this week. And the Minister of Labour and Employment, Mr. Simon Lalong, has invited the NLC for a meeting tomorrow. He directed the Department of Trade Union Services and Industrial Relations to convene that meeting with the union's leadership and said that it was important that the unions sit with governments to resolve all of the pending matters to avert further disruption of the economy. So again, all eyes on the venue of that meeting to see what exactly plays out. The impasse, it was seen between FG and Labour, might end this week or otherwise, but we'll be here to report it to you as it plays out. Okay, our first port of call tonight is on governance, particularly President Bwala Tinubu's appointments and the implications. As has been said, this week saw a number of appointments, but I mean, over the past couple of weeks, we've seen appointments upon appointments. Aside the ministerial appointments, we've seen appointments as heads of ministries, aside that agencies, parastatals, and the rest. So what are the implications? How are Nigerians receiving this? What about the opposition? What can we tell from what played out in the past. So let's bring on our guest tonight. We'll be having a debate on the president's nominations. We have Mr. Daniel Bwala joining us live from the United Kingdom. He's a lawyer and a member of the PDP presidential campaign. It's good to have you on the program, Mr. Bwala.
Thank you for having me. Good evening.
Good evening. Also joining us is Mr. Aliyu, a member of the All Progressives Congress. He's also been a member of the Presidential Transition Committee. He joins us from the nation's capital, Abuja. It's good to have you on the program as well, Mr. Aliyu.
Thank you for having me. Good evening.
So let's get right into this. And I'll begin with Mr. Bwala, because the opposition, yes, might not be in major government, but you're on the sidelines watching how the government is carrying on with governance. And you particularly have kicked against some of President Tinubu's appointments. I'd like you to break this down for us so we can have this conversation. Is it a question of size? Is it a question of capability? What exactly is it for you?
Well, thank you for having me, and good evening to Nigerians. When the appointment of minister started, I think I did not hide my feelings or opinion on the matter, but I'm one of the over 200 million Nigerians. And I felt that that the administration at that time was not looking at competence, so to speak. And the other part of it is that he wasn't also looking at the loyalty of members of the party, because we have seen how other people were appointed who you can beat your chest and say they did not work enough as compared to many others who are capable. I maintain the position that it is a case of square peg and round holes. And we have seen it, at least the past few weeks, which they've commenced. There are quite a number of them. We haven't seen them operate yet because, their ministries have not been called to duty. But there are some of them that have started operating. And I think that it is evident at the moment that a lot of them are yet to understand the intricacies of the ministry. But what happened in this month of September even escalate the conversation further. That is not just the issue of a round peg and square holes. It is also the question of nepotism. And permit me 1 minute, let me give you a background. You see, in the month of September, iPhone company, Apple company released iPhone. They call, the biggest of it all, they call it iPhone 15 Pro Max. They said it is the escalation and the improvement of that iPhone over and above the previous ones. APC as a political party was the party that commenced this idea of nepotism in government. I remember when President Bwala was in power, people complained about nepotism, even though some of his people could put up a defense to show you in a whole appointment and to prove to you that the Southwest got more during his time, only that in specific areas you have people in the North. But that argument could not sail through. But he left in 2015. So it's like iPhone 13 Pro Max. By the time President Bwala Tinubu took over, he's not even exceed iPhone 14. And it went straight to iPhone 15 Pro Max, in the sense that his appointment has not only generated the conversation around the country that the government is being constituted to concentrate in one part of the country over and above others. In the case of Buhari, you could argue that he favored the North, as people have canvassed. But when you go to the North, you see that it is populated by Northeast, Northwest, and North-South. There was a democratic appointment there. But when it came to this present government, if you look at it, the Southeast and the South-South are left behind. The dominance of the appointment is in the Southwest. Then even when you go further in the Southwest and you begin the conversation, there are quite a number of people in the Southwest who will tell you that the appointment was concentrated in Lagos. And even when there was need to appoint people who come from other parts of the Southwest other than Lagos, choices were made for the Lagos boys over and above these other states where you had the grassroots people that work for the party. In a nutshell, right, the appointment is projecting. The Constitution says the government must not be run in a way that it will reflect the dominance of one part of the country over the other. Ordinarily, we shouldn't be even talking about where does the person come from. We should be talking about performance. But heck, this is where we are as a country. We've come to a point where performance has failed a lot of people, and then we are now talking about the idea of a government being constituted which does not reflect the unity of Nigeria. Yeah.
So, Mr. Bwala, let's bring in Mr. Aliyu to get his response to this one, because he is one of the vibrant youths in the APC, part of people who championed the APC rebirth, which of course saw this government coming in, and I mean, you had promised quite a number of things. Now, hearing what Mr. Bwala has said, directly speaking to the appointment, he thinks that this is even nepotism taking a notch higher. What is your response, Mr. Audu?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, please, Mr. Audu. Please go ahead.
All right. Okay, I mean, I quite heard him, and like I've always said, at some point we're going to have to tell ourselves if what we want is a country that works or a country that keeps living its primordial sentiment. Before the election, a whole lot happened, and I mean, that even led to some people leaving the party to in protest of candidature. I mean, we've had this time and time again. Every time there is a government in. During former President Goodluck Jonathan, I remember all of the complaints about certain sector of the economy being manned by people from a particular part of the country. Under former President Muhammadu Buhari was the same thing, and now we are back to it again. At each of those two times in the previous times, at the end of their tenure, there was never a point that anyone from any part of the country could say that if a particular set of people or a region were doing any better than the other regions anyway. And it asks this question of us, like, what do we really want to achieve by going all of this? When we say this, every time we say this, what is the goal? If we want a country that works, then we want people who can do the job to come from any part of the country to do that job. And it is the prerogative of the president. I mean, the constitution is very clear on the mandatory part of appointment. And if we have complaint about the president not meeting up with that requirement of the constitution, then we have a valid point. But when we come to express sentiments, primordial sentiments at that, and I mean, we got to stop at some point and just look for effectiveness and trust in the man we have voted to take us to where we need to be as a nation, irrespective of where anybody is from, north, south, west, east. Every single person that is going to be appointed or is already appointed is going to be a Nigerian. And as we speak, we know the appointment are still coming in, and I mean, it is too early to start sizing up what percentage of the total appointments from one part of the country. At the beginning of former President Muhammadu Buhari's government, there was so much talked about it being northernized. But in the end, we realized that the Southwest had more percentage of, appointment distribution. When we go by geopolitical zones, Southwest had more than even the Northwest that the former president was from. So what I'm saying is, yes, we see some of this. We see the fact that the number of names coming up from the Southwest. We must have faith that the man doesn't want to fail. We don't want him to fail, and he's not a man who likes.
Mr. Audu, do you agree with the point he made that he used the term Lagos boys have been appointed mainly by the president in recent times? Is that something you agree with? People who had worked with the president before, is there an explanation as to that? And particularly, how's the party taking it?
It's coming from the PDP, so we don't expect any less. I mean, they're down there, they're just hanging on to anything they think they can to pull them out. I mean, the party is pretty much in shape. Like I've said time and time again, we have our internal check system, internal monitoring system, with which we question what our government does at the center. We have internal processes. We question all that needs to be questioned, but this isn't. I mean, he hasn't made it up to. We have thresholds that we set to trigger that question to be asked within the system. Whatever it is he's holding on to hasn't quite made it up to that point yet.
All right, let's go back to Mr. Bwala. And it's good that you're a lawyer, Mr. Bwala, so you can help us understand what the Constitution says about appointments. We've seen the president appoint ministers. There's a constitutional provision for the appointment of ministers, how states must be represented. And then there's the other appointments for agencies and the rest, which some have said that it's at the president's prerogative. What does the law really say, and which part of the law do you think the president is breaking with these appointments, Mr. Bwala?
So this is, in my view, the crux of the matter. Oftentimes, when issue is raised like that, people ask the question whether it is legal or not legal, whether a law is broken or a law is not broken. Now, the Constitution is a very broad document. There is the aspect of the Constitution that talks about minister coming from every state. Then there is the aspect of the Constitution, in fact, Section 14, that talks about governance must be structured in a manner that it will reflect diversity and the unity of the country. Now, if somebody does not obey that, is it justiciable? It has not been tested, and you're most likely not going to get an outcome. But the whole idea of a nation is about commanding national loyalty, because if you look at Section 14, it also says so that it will command national loyalty. That is the crux of national security, that the people of the country are loyal to the country because they believe that the country reflects the diversity of the people and the country respects the diversities of Nigeria. Take, for example, the Southeast. Apart from the constitutionally guaranteed appointment that they have, which is five for five, they have not gotten anything significant. As a matter of fact, apart from Minister for Works, all the other appointments that are given to them, the appointment that people could sit down and tell you it is not significant. The question you have, so if you talk about law or not law, why is the Southeast particularly not taken into consideration in this? Then you can stretch it to other parts of Nigeria, right? Like the North Central as well. They also complain about that. Now, when a government is in power, and I often hear the argument that the man does not want to fail, allow him to choose whoever he wants to choose, as if he cannot find the same competent people in every part of Nigeria. You can have equal distribution of position and have equal competent people in every part of the country. So if you want to give an argument to counter these concerns that Nigerians are raising, I think that part of argument will not be strong enough, because there is no, except if you are insinuating that apart from this part of the country that he has selected the people majorly from, the rest of the other parts of the country do not have the people that can help him succeed, when you say you don't want him to fail. So if he does not choose all of these people or the volume of these people from this part, and he attempts all other part, that there is likelihood that he may not succeed. But absurdity, and this is where, for example, politics is matched with governance. When you bring in, for example, technocrats, people who have never participated in politics, you need to understand the reason why political appointments are balanced within technocrats and politicians is because the whole idea of politics is an association of like minds that come together with an ideology to take control of power with the aim of delivering on the good governance to the Nigerian people. There is no defense to that. Now, I don't particularly want to say Tinubu as a person is someone who has been known for this nepotistic kind of operation. But you see, once you come into Villa, a different spirit comes on you or operates around there. And that is exactly what we are seeing. But I am not surprised, because he said, I will replicate what I did in Lagos. Some people did not know. So he has replicated it in the center by bringing the Lagos boys. Then secondly, why are you surprised when he said, Emilio, it is my turn? So whatever he does, and in my humble view and with the greatest respect, I am appealing to the president to be himself in the governance of the affairs of the country and not allow influences that are not particularly protecting the national security interests of government, in carrying out the affairs of government. There is no justification for that, because there are parts of this country that are ignored. In fact, you can even when we go further to interrogate on the competence or compellability of these individuals, that people say he doesn't want to fail. Most of these people, we applaud them, we celebrate them, but look at their last place of work. Some of them ran bank that went aground. Some of them held positions that went up aground. And you can find in every part of Nigeria equal bankers, equal economists, equal lawyers, and in every part. So to me, when you look at a government that is being constituted in this kind of way, you may not be able to command the loyalty of the people. And loyalty is key in legitimacy. Loyalty is key in government.
parts have been neglected? Are there some parts you know specifically? Maybe you're from Borno State. Is your state being neglected in what way particularly? Just before I take this to Mr. Aldo quickly now.
I am not here to talk about my state. My state has produced the vice president, and the vice president is a competent person, a person who has vast experience, and I respect that. And I also know that there is a minister that is represented from my state. It's not about me. We have gone beyond making argument for your state. We are talking about national unity. We are talking about moving the country beyond this primordial consideration. And you can never fulfill the idea of the Nigerian dream operating from this kind of way. We thought that Buhari's administration, which was lauded, in fact, there are people who can make the argument that Buhari made, if you look at overall, more appointments in the Southwest than in any part of the geopolitical zones. It's arguable, but people have facts to support that.
So let me take this back to
in this case, President Bwala is working in that line.
Right. So, Mr. Aldo, for those, who think that, does this mean that other parts don't have capable people? I'm not talking about the ministerial appointments now, particularly the agencies and the rest. For those who think that, well, we have capable people in our states where we're from, what would you say to them?
All right. I would say, let's give it time. If we are being very honest with ourselves, we know the truth is only a small percentage of the overall appointments to be filled have just been made, and with time, when the government is just 3 months plus old. We have 48 months to go. By the time we go, let's say a quarter of the time. By the time we have 12 months in, let's take stock of the distribution of personnel again across agencies, across parastatals, across ministries. Then we'll probably be able to have we'll be able to make a more informed decision on this. But I think it's a little too early and a little too unscientific to start throwing accusation about nepotism. Like I've said, let me even paint a picture of he said something about him trying to replace what he did in Lagos. So it means that he's coming from somewhere and he's done this before, and whatever trust we have in him is as a result of what he was able to achieve with the team he had together. So naturally, we would expect that team will have a significant impact on what he does going forward, because he has related with people from different parts of the country, no doubt. He has people from different parts of the country, no doubt. But it doesn't take away the fact that he has more knowledge, and he has related more with people from the team he has worked with before, experience. Past relationship comes to bear. They all come to bear here, and it's laughable when Mr. Bwala starts mentioning things like Emiloko. It actually makes it makes ridicule of decision we individually or collectively have taken in the past regarding the choice of whom we want to support in with respect to where we think the country is and where we want the country to head to, and who we think is it has proven in his past assignment to have what it takes to take us there. We have reason to look at the appointments so far and say, okay, there are more people from Southwest, but let's ask ourselves the simple question: how many percentage of the total expected appointments have been made so far? It's insignificant, and so should this comparison be.
Well, Mr. Aldo, there are people even in your party, the APC, who have said, well, they're not happy with some of the appointments for the fact that they think some of them didn't quite work for the president in the build-up to the elections as much as others did. Some thought, well, wait a minute, these people don't deserve this. This is just a spite on some of us who have been loyal to the party and to the president. So are you aware of such feelings, and how can the president sort this out?
Oh yes, I am. I'm very aware. I'm a party man. I'm a true party man, and I believe that for what the party stands for, the members of the party who who were at the forefront of the marketing of our presidential ticket understand better, what the agenda is, or what the renewed hope is supposed to be. And I think a better place than any other person to bring to light this thing. That being said, we have demonstrated trust in the man we have chosen. We have demonstrated belief in him. I am saying that all of these concerns, which are natural, which are normal, but they are not enough yet. They are not enough for us to start doubting the very conviction we had from the moment we decided to go with this ticket, to go with this man and go with this ticket. Let's look at the bigger picture. I think that's what we have been telling ourselves within the party. That's what we continue to tell ourselves, and I'm confident that communications have gone in. Some of these concerns have gone to as far as the president, and he's aware. And I'm confident he's someone who listens. He's a leader, and he's gonna look at this and make amends and ensure that there's everybody's concerned. It's properly listened to and addressed as it should be, so we can, most importantly, build a country where it does not matter. I dream of a Nigeria where we don't have to talk about religion, right. We don't have to talk about tribe, we don't have to talk about ethnicity tomorrow. But at this point, what is most important is actually getting us to build our nation. If we believe that this man is our best bet right now, I'm not saying he's the only one that can do it, but I'm saying from antecedent, from record, he's surely the best person we've had that has proven that he can do this in public office. Yes, it's too early to start losing trust. It's too early to start losing hope. And we are aware of that.
Pardon me, incidentally, that was one of the reasons Mr. Bwala left the APC after the Muslim ticket and all. Well, he said he wanted a party that represents at least Nigeria as it is, and here we are again having that conversation months after. But gentlemen, as we wind down, I'll come to you now, Mr.
Let me quickly say something.
Just
regarding
briefly,
that,
we're winding down.
I'd like to remind us, as soon as the primary was over, a number of us emerging leaders in the party, because of the words going around, realized that, okay, we could actually pull it off with the Northern Christian. So we came out and we put our position on that. But when we sat with Mr. President, when he eventually made his choice, and he gave us reason as to why he made his choice, it made sense to us, and we accepted it. We didn't have to leave our party because we had a dream that is bigger than. In any case, let's remind ourselves that all of the noise that was made in 2015, 8 years came and gone, but Nigeria is still here. President Muhammad Buhari is our president today. This is 4 years guaranteed.
Well, Mr. Aldu, so I imagine that Mr. Bwala will want to respond to that quickly before we move on to the next point. But Mr. Bwala, do you want to respond to that before we move on?
Yes. Point number one, when people make the case that it is too early to begin to lay complaint about issues, that was how they started the first 1 week. We have just finished 100 days. And if you remember, the whole of last week and week before, people were all over the media trying to pour shower encomium on the successes. So if you want to go ahead and talk about his successes, why don't you want people to critique whether or not that was done in a proper way? And I want to say something very importantly before you wind down this section, Mr. Kayode. I earn the right to speak truth to power because President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is somebody that I, Daniel Bwala, respect with the greatest respect. I supported him when I was in APC in the primaries. More than just that, I, in PDP, sent my congratulations to him after he was sworn in, which brought a lot of backlash to me to tell you that I don't have anything against him. If President Bola Ahmed Tinubu scores a point, I'll be the first, whether in PDP or in APC, to say President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has done it right. Now, if you think I can say that, why don't you believe we earn the right to point out things that the president and his administration is doing, which is not uniting Nigeria, which is not pushing us towards the path? For example, when they talk about the Dubai something, I exposed the lies. And now our country is getting respect because at some point people are thinking Nigeria is an object of caricature. to be given a false representation of what happened in Dubai. Is the
Mr.
government
Bwala,
not
that's the
redirected
beauty
now?
of democracy, really. Having debates, ensure that everybody gets their say. That's the essence of democracy. But let's wind down with this one, just before our time is up. The president is attending UNGA in New York. Just over 1,000 kilometers away, your party, the PDP, has a case that it is pursuing. And for some people, in fact, particularly the APC, they think, well, this is a wild goose chase. This issue has been resolved. What are your expectations, Mr. Bwala? Get Mr. Aliyu to also respond, and then we'll wind down.
Maybe they said that because they know what they have matched. But the one that I know is that when somebody goes to court, you, on the other side, should celebrate the fact that people are exploring democratic means of venting their grudges rather than taking the laws into their hands. So we are in the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court would interpret the law and interpret also whether or not the decision of the Election Petition Tribunal Court is right or not. But whether the case comes today or tomorrow, we all as citizens owe the duty to support our leaders and to also critique them when they go wrong so that our leaders can do the right thing. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's appointment is nepotistic and now has earned the status of nepotism pro Max 15.
Mr. Bwala, I was referring to the PDP's case in the U.S. court, which is pursuing over the president's qualifications and the rest. That's what I was referring to, since it's in the U.S.
Actually, the case in the U.S. is ongoing. I mean, it's going on. I do not have the details of the case going on in the U.S. My concentration is the case going on in Nigeria.
All right, so let's get Mr. Audu's final thoughts on that one. There's been a lot of furore, debate on the president's qualification. Looks like it's not going away. Your final thoughts, Mr. Audu.
All right. I mean, I'll be the first to actually admit that. I mean, if we expect people to give credit for when good is done, we should equally be, appreciative of concerns raised. I mean, and I think I was clear enough when I said, I mean, it looks from what it is, it looks that there be more of appointment from one side. But like I said, it is too early to dub it, a nepotistic approach to governance. And Mr. Bwala is a brother and a friend and someone I respect so much. And like he said, he's earned the right. He's earned the right to critique any government, let alone the one he has stepped, even more the one he has stepped into government one way or another, just like every one of us. We should critique our own, we should praise our own, but we should understand where to draw the line. We should always have an objective we should not critique just for the sake of criticism. We shouldn't critique for the sake of causing disaffection among Nigerians. We shouldn't critique. We have a lot dealing with. Our economic challenges is enormous. It's enough, stress on Nigerians already. Adding things that add value, primordial sentiments that add absolutely no value to our daily living should be discouraged, because the only way we can move forward reminding us is to actually able to learn to trust that the next man means well for the country as much as I do.
Well, Mr. Audu, I think that's a great place to anchor. You didn't respond to the court case in the U.S. and the question I asked about, the thoughts of you and your party on that one. But we'll have to anchor at this point. The coming days, of course, will tell. Mr. Aliyu Audu is a member of the All Progressives Congress. Thank you so much for joining us. I understand the weather is really tough where you're at, so you had to get a makeshift location. Thank you so much for joining us, as well as Mr. Daniel Bwala, a lawyer, member of the PDP presidential campaign. Thank you for your time as well.